part interview, part commentary track, all podcast. Watching Robocop with Kid Power. Our very special guest, Fallon.
Hello everybody, hello, welcome back to Watching Robocop episode 18. Yes, this podcast is now of a legal age. You may marry this podcast if this podcast agrees and consents to be married to you. This podcast may go out drinking, this podcast may join the army and indeed vote in any forthcoming general elections. It's all terribly exciting. And as any parent would be in this situation, I'm filled with a mixture of emotions. I'm obviously very proud of the adult that my podcast has become. At the same time, there's a bittersweet sadness in seeing it spread its wings and fly off into the world to make its own way. Still, needs must, and here we are, and what better guest could there possibly be to see this show into its adulthood than the wonderful Fallon, author, of course, of The Terminal and The Warblers, as well as many others, and her short story collection as well, TV Dinners from Hell. Amber is an accomplished and I would say still up and coming really horror author who's increasingly making waves with her fiction. She also podcasts, and she's got a wonderful podcast which mixes horror and cooking, which sounds hilarious, and often is. It's a great little show. It's called It Cooks on the Project Entertainment Network, the same network as Brian Keene's horror show, of course, which some of you may well be familiar with. More on Amber in a minute. First, just a little bit of housekeeping as ever. And it's publishing news. Again, yes, I know. It's getting a little crazy around here. So I said it was going to be the year of the short story, and so it's proven. The latest release is a piece of microfiction that I've written. Microfiction, flash fiction? What are the rules between those two? I guess it's flash. It's over 100 words, but less than 500. It's a very short story called Swimming, and it's appearing in the pocket guide to the Sinister Horror Company. You'll be aware, I'm sure, that my debut novel God Bomb and indeed my novella collection Breaking Point have both been published by Sinister Horror. Well, they've decided in this wonderful project where they've asked every single author that's written for them so far to provide them with a piece of flash fiction for this pocket guide book. And that's been released now. It's available through Amazon. It's available in paperback and ebook format. I think it's only a couple of quid as well. It's a cheap item, but it contains, 19, 20 short stories? I'm not sure, 19 or 20. Again, one for each Sinister Horror author. It's a great idea for an anthology because it really does give you a sense of the breadth of what they're publishing. It's been out for a little while. We've already had some very favourable reviews, including from Ginger Not So Horror, who says some very nice things about my short story, which I was obviously very pleased about because you never know how it's going to go across. So yeah, that's out now. The Pocket Guide to the Sinister Horror Company. Check it out. Go and get it. It's only a couple of quid and it's well worth your time. I know Sinister Horror appearing at various conventions throughout the year, and I know they'll be at FCon, but I'm not sure they're going to have a stall. So you might be better off just heading online and picking that one up. So yeah, that's going well. I've got at least one more short story release coming up that I still can't talk about, but I hope to be able to talk about it by the time we next speak. But meanwhile, in Watching Robocop land, we've got Amber Fallon. Now, it turns out Amber is another kind of Robocop superfan, really, very much in the vein of last month's guest, Edward Lawn. She's grown up with the movie, and as you're about to hear, she's seen it a fair few times in her life. So, as ever for me, it's always a massive treat to sit down and watch my favourite movie with someone for whom it occupies sort of at least a somewhat similar place in their hearts. So, I think as we go on, listen out for, in particular, Amber's talking about horror movie roots. There's some lovely conversation about world building through advertising. We do discuss the only movie that ever actually shocked and disgusted Amber, because she's got a pretty strong stomach for this kind of thing, so listen out for that. We also talk about Ray Wise and the Devil, the many genres that Robocop the movie contains, of course. Dinosaur attack cards show up. There is one other thing I do want to mention before we listen to this as well. I don't kick cats. Okay, I want to make that perfectly clear. I make a joke in this commentary track where I say people get upset and normally they just go home and kick the cat. It's a turn of phrase. That's all it is. It's a turn of phrase. I don't kick cats. I don't advocate kicking cats. If you do go home and kick the cat, you're not a nice person. You're a bad person and you need to stop kicking your cat. Okay. I just want to make that clear, because as I was listening to it, I thought, oh, that's quite funny. And Amber doesn't laugh. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, do people actually think I'm actually advocating cat kicking? So for the avoidance of any doubt whatsoever, Kit Power officially against kicking cats, very strongly against it. Anyway, with that very important caveat out of the way, should we go and watch Robocop? Let's go and watch Robocop with Amber. Okay, cool. Let's go in. So if you're set, then I'll just give a couple of couple of seconds of dead air, and then we'll start, if that's cool.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. So it is my great pleasure to welcome to the show Amber Fallon. Amber, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Kit?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to be sitting down and watching Robocop. It's always a highlight of the month when I get to do this. So I'm doing good. So we'll start with the 5 questions, the same 5 questions I ask every guest. So question number 1, Amber, how old were you when you first saw Robocop?
I was probably 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly. I know I was young. I have a lot of memories of watching the movie the first time as a kid.
Wow, 5 or 6.
Yeah. But
okay.
don't feel like Robocop corrupted me, because at that time my favorite movies were Tombs of the Blind Dead and The Pit and the Pendulum and Witchfinder General. And those were all constantly playing, so
Okay. So you were kind of born to this life, is what you're saying, basically.
Very much so. My parents had absolutely no discretion, so it was what it was.
Wow. That's certainly towards the young end of the spectrum in terms of guests with this film. So that's interesting. Okay, so then question number 2: how many times have you seen Robocop?
A best guess is probably about 24.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty respectable score.
I've watched it a bunch of times. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's in heavy rotation. I've watched it with my husband probably 4 or 5 times. So
it's a cool
classic.
Yeah. Well, the greatest movie ever made, as far as I'm concerned. Hence the podcast. All right, question number 3 then. When's the last time you saw Robocop?
Probably about a year and a half ago. I had surgery last year, and during that time I was watching sort of my comfort food movies. So anything that I liked that, brought that nice nostalgia feeling, and I'm sure it was in the rotation then. I don't really remember because there were a lot of painkillers involved, but I'm sure it was on.
Okay, well, hopefully we don't induce too many painkiller flashbacks tonight watching it again. But it's nice to hear it's a comfort food movie, though, because I can completely relate to that.
Yeah, sorry, that's my dog barking outside. I don't know if you can pick that up, but she's out there barking.
Oh, okay. Oh, bless. Okay, so question number 4. No wrong answers here. Why do you, Amber Fallon, think that Robocop is the greatest movie ever made?
I think that it's a great riff on some of the really classic tropes. It's man against nature and man against himself, and it's a great riff. It's also a brutal tragedy, and depending on whose perspective in the movie you relate to, it tells a completely different narrative, which I think is a really unique thing for a lot of movies, because generally you've only got the hero and the villain for your traditional action movie. But when you look at Robocop, there's obviously our hero, Robocop himself, the namesake of the movie, and that's sort of a tragedy. He was a family man, dedicated to his life as a cop, and then everything sort of got ripped away from him and he's made into this cyborg. And then you've got you know, all of the other characters and their take on that, their opinions, and that's sort of a powerful thing, especially at the time when this movie came out. Everybody was looking to the future. We had things like Back to the Future and other, you know, everyone in the 80s was looking towards the 2000s as this bright, shiny new time. So RoboCop and Judge Dredd and things that dared look at that future as something dark and dismal rather than something beautiful and shiny were interesting.
That I think that's probably the best answer I've ever had to that question. That's absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you.
No, that was really good. Yeah, and I agree with you. Obviously, I think I mean, one of the things I love about it is the way it melds. There are absolute classic kind of horror movie and indeed, as you pointed out, tragedy tropes in there, and yet at the same time, it's a work of science fiction. And I love how all that's kind of in the melting pot together. I think it makes for a great film. So finally, then. We discussed off air, but the version of Robocop we're watching tonight, I understand, is probably the theatrical cut. Is that right? We're watching you're streaming it from Amazon. Is that right?
I'm streaming it from Amazon, and it says it's 1 hour and 43 minutes, if that helps.
Yeah, I think it probably is the theatrical cut. Okay, that's cool. So for those of you who are playing along at home, and if you are, by the way, you just know you're an amazing person. That's what better way there is to spend your time than watching Robocop and listening to me and Amber talk about it. So go you, don't ever change. But secondly, we are about to start watching Robocop right now. So if you want to get it lined up on your medium player of choice, I'll do my traditional count backwards from 5, and then when I get to 0, we'll be watching Robocop. So, Amber, if you are ready on your play pause button.
I'm ready.
Awesome. So then, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go Robo. We have the MGM Lion.
The MGM Lion, yes, classic. How many movies start with that lion? You know you're in for something good.
Absolutely. And then, of course, Orion Pictures, which is the sadly departed.
Sadly. But, also good classic cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything from Bill and Ted to Robocop. I mean, what else do you need?
Yes. another fine film.
Well, another fun piece of science fiction with a bunch of other things going on as well. Yeah.
Have you heard rumors of the third, or I think it's the third? Yeah, Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Their Bogus Journey. There's rumors that they're going to be doing a third one. Oh, we've got our title sequence.
Yes. Yeah, here we go. Straight in with the fake news.
Yes.
What do you think about this as a bit of storytelling too?
It's definitely a good way to sort of bring you into a comfortable zone. Who hasn't watched the news? And even now, years after this movie has been made, I think we're on, 30 years after this movie has come out? Oh, yeah. 31.
31, yeah.
We still have familiarity. These newscasters look like they could be, other than some of their hairstyles, they look like they could be modern newscasters. So this sort of brings you right into a familiar zone where you learn the story. And it's a great way to sort of immerse people in the familiar and a contrast with something radically different.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an interesting thing from a UK perspective. I remember just finding it hilarious that there was an ad break halfway through a 3-minute news broadcast. Like that to me was just...
Oh, that's not unusual here at all.
Right. Well, as I discovered when I eventually went on holiday as a child to America, and I was like, wow, no, this is actually a thing.
We do love our advertisements.
But it's never for the Family Heart Center where you can buy a robotic heart. So already you're getting a bit of world building going on.
That's true. And a lot of flavor comes through with that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it's the way the advert is shot, right, and the way it's put together indicates a certain level of budget, which suggests that this is actually very mainstream, doesn't it? It's not like a high end thing. Exactly. It looks like it's pitched at the middle class. So yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be something that's approachable and reachable for everyone. Otherwise, they wouldn't put it on the evening news.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's I'm not sure I'd caught that before, but I think that's a really good point. It's just, I mean,
he's made his first appearance.
Yes, there he is. Oh, I mean, it's one of the great movie villains, in my opinion, of all time, Clarence Boddicker.
Very much agreed.
Yeah, no, he's glorious. And now we're in the police precinct, which other people have pointed out to me, this does not look futuristic. This looks like an 80s police, if not a 70s one, frankly.
It absolutely does. This would be at home Lethal Weapon, or
Right.
will Die Hard. There's nothing modern here. I mean, if we get a glance at their computer screens, I mean, like nothing modernized at all. You'd expect like the little blinking lights, or one of the other ways in which they modernized technology back then, and no, none of it's here.
No, I mean, you could, I guess, if you wanted to stretch it with the storytelling, you could say like, this is because the police haven't had their budget. Their budget's been slashed for the last sort of 20 years, so they can't afford to renovate. I don't know, but
I guess I still think it's a little bit of a stretch. It's so at odds with the rest of the movie that it's like they were doing a museum and it's the historical 1980s police precinct.
Exactly. I mean, it's Hill Street Blues, isn't it? It's completely like.
Yes, it is.
And meanwhile, we have the Paul Verhoeven co-ed locker room, which is comes back in Starship Troopers. It's clearly something this particular director's a fan of.
Oh, definitely. That's another great media property. There were 4 movies, and a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, and as with this, I've only seen the first one. I refuse to have anything to do with the rest of it.
You're not missing much in the Starship Troopers vein. And the weird thing is they geared the TV show towards kids.
That's
children's TV show.
Yeah, that's so just that's very strange. Why would you do that?
Starship Troopers, the Roughneck Chronicles, I think is what it was called. I remember watching it and I'd seen the movies, so I'm like, okay, and then this just doesn't fit, and they changed the characters around a lot, so it was a little weird.
That's perplexing to me. I find that because Starship Troopers is a very adult film. I don't mean not just in terms of like, obviously there's the the adult content with the the sex stuff, but I just mean it's a complicated adult themes, like what?
Or devastation, alien worlds, that kind of thing. Colonizing an alien world. Yeah, there's some major heavy stuff in there.
Yeah, and the combat is brutal, if I remember rightly. It's really,
very much so.
Yeah,
they suck a guy's brain out through a straw.
There you go. So what about that Screams Kids TV show?
I know.
Mind you, I'd have loved that as a kid, so maybe, I don't know.
Well, I was already into the hard stuff as a kid, so I was years ahead of all the other kids in terms of violence and blood and guts in movies. So I was always a good kid.
So did that make you the cool kid because you knew all about all this stuff that they weren't allowed to see? Did that give you a bit of cachet?
Trouble. It got me in a lot of trouble. I was homeschooled. I was a military brat, so I was homeschooled a lot of the time. But I did once in a while go on homeschool outings with the Homeschoolers Association, or we'd go to daycare once in a while if my mother had to do something important and things like that. So there was also summer camp a couple times, and I would draw pictures. I was a very big artist as a kid. I would draw pictures, and usually they'd be Freddy Krueger. I'd draw Jason. And I didn't skimp on the blood, and my mother had many phone calls of, well, is this appropriate? And then the other kids were very curious about things like this because they knew about properties like Freddy Krueger and whatnot. So they'd ask, and I'd reenact the whole thing like a play, and it was bad. I didn't learn until I was much older that other kids weren't really allowed to do things like this, that there were things that were off the table for children because it was normal. My parents had no compunction about just letting me watch whatever was on. And because it was never treated like it was taboo, because there was never anything wrong with blood or guts or sex or violence, it just didn't seem like a big deal to me. And I could never understand why everybody was mad at me.
Well, that's interesting. So did that carry on into adult life, or have you gone back to any of that stuff and found it shocking in retrospect, or are you just like permanently okay with it?
Well, I will say that there has only ever been one movie I've ever seen that has actually shocked and sort of disgusted me.
Okay.
So I think my threshold was increased by the fact that none of this was a big deal.
Right.
You know, from a young age, there was always blood and guts and violence. I mean, both of my parents were horror fans, so
Okay.
it was not unusual to watch a horror movie with my mother, or, you know, when my father was around, to watch a movie with him. And yeah, not really. When you set the stage that way, when, you know, it's not a big deal, I think a lot of that fear and a lot of the issues that a lot of kids may have with something like that is that taboo, the idea that there's something to be afraid of. And if you never treat it as something that's scary or wrong, it just doesn't add up that way.
That's interesting. I mean, I know like most of the studies that have been done into like the impact of you know, adult entertainment on children is that it's really about the context in which the kids see it that's important. And as long as they've got adults around them, you know, and it's treated and they know they can talk about it if they want to, it's fine. It's when kids watch it on their own, or they don't have the supervision, or there's no kind of, that's when it can sometimes lead to problems later on. So that's sounds like what you're saying kind of sort of feeds into that, really.
Oh, completely agreed. I mean, my parents were both in scientific fields, so there was never any question. If
Right.
I had a question about something, there was never anything wrong with that. I was always encouraged to question things, and I would always be given direct answers. There was never any sugarcoating. There was never anything, you know. I didn't have to have like a birds and the bees kind of talk, because human biology was just something I knew.
So I've got to ask, what was the one film that actually shocked and disgusted you?
A Serbian film.
Okay, yeah, that's on my will never watch list. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
You know, I've seen a lot, and that was just unnecessary, and it was gross for gross's sake. And I made it through, but uncomfortably so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. My threshold's quite a bit lower than yours by the sounds of things. That my cut-off movie was Last House on the Left, which I have seen once, will never see again.
The original or the remake?
Oh, the original.
Okay, the original's much more brutal. The remake softened a lot of edges, which I found weird, because we always think of movies in that era as sort of being softer, and we're so much more hardcore these days, but they tend to soften a lot of edges. You know, one of my all-time favorite movies is Death Race 2000. And when they remade that, they took all the balls out of it, for lack of a better term. You know, we're supposed to be so much more edgy than our parents and our grandparents, and there you go, just taking everything away.
It's very strange. It's funny you saying that. I was thinking about kids' entertainment, because my little girl's 8, and we're starting to figure out what films she likes and what she, you know, stuff we can watch with her. And the interesting thing is she's just got into superhero movies. So we're going through the Marvel ones, and most of them are rated like 12A over here, which is, I don't know, what do you have, PG-13, that sort of rating. And I'm okay with her watching them, but I'm really nervous about sitting down with like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And like, that's a PG, but I think it's way, like, the ending of that film is way scarier than anything in like Iron Man or Hulk, you know?
Oh, we've got our first gore shot. Oh,
yes. Now that's an execution, man. That's how you do it.
Oh, yes. That line from the Three Amigos, who filled him so full of lead he could use his dick for a pencil.
Nice. You know, I just
claymation. That's just, I love how natural it is. I mean, these days we have all of our CGI, and it is what it is. But there's definitely something to be said for practical effects.
Oh, I'm a massive fan, and I think it works particularly. The stop frame works particularly well for robotics, you know, because they do move. Robots move in a kind of jerky, slightly unnatural fashion, so it actually leans into the constraints of stop frames. So I think it's a I think it works incredibly well for the ED209.
Agreed. And I love how everyone's reacting. I mean, look at the differences in the people in the room and how they're reacting to this. One guy's concerned about his profit margins. One guy's concerned about his business practice. And then the two in the corner are like staring at the corpse of their colleague. And they're clearly registering something these other three just don't care about. And it's a great way to show the values of that character right off bat. You don't even have to know him. You know who he is by what his concern was watching his machine kill somebody.
Yeah. And it's just, and those three are three of the, they're three of the corporate leaders, and they're clearly all sociopaths, right? I mean, they're just like value placed on human life, 0. Like, couldn't care less. And those are the guys running the show, of course.
Of course, that's how you get to the top. You got to step on everybody on your way to get there. So what's one more body? I love how they tried to modernize this sort of setting, because they're playing with the 80s aesthetic, those clean lines and the bright colors and sort of the holographic mirrored sort of aesthetic that they've got natural to the 80s. But then they're trying to modernize it, and it's very interesting. I always love looking at the future version of what people thought the past was, or what people thought that in the past thought that the future was going to be like. It's just so interesting to me.
Oh, I'm endlessly fascinated by that. I mean, I really love like 50s futurism. I think some of that stuff is just amazing. Really? The flying Cadillacs with those ridiculous fins and all that kind of stuff, The
airplane.
I mean, it's kind of pastiched in the Fallout game.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I love that whole thing. But yeah, you're right. It's a fascinating thing. I think you can. Well, oh, here they come.
Oh, the money! Look at that! How quaint. There's no Bitcoin.
Again, it's
with the money.
Someone did come out with a theory for me. They reckon that the reason, the reason this is like a low rent gang is because they're still stealing physical money, which in the future, like no one cares about.
Right. I don't carry cash for the most part, so yeah, it's interesting. I forgot that actor was in this movie. I can't remember his name. He played the devil in a TV show called Reaper, which is one of my favorite versions of the devil. I can never remember his name.
Which actor are we talking about now? One of the gang?
It's one of the gang. The one on the left. Now he's on the right. Him, who's leaning forward.
I think we're slightly... Is it Kurt? It's not Kurtwood Smith.
No, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
It's not Ray Wise.
Yes, it is Ray Wise.
Ray Wise. There we go.
That's it. Ray Wise.
Yeah.
Very young.
I mean, for me, he's Leland from Twin Peaks. But yeah.
Oh, true. He is definitely Leland from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
He plays the devil on a TV show called Reaper, and I've been doing a lot of research on the devil lately because I'm actually writing a book about the devil.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've been doing rewatches of Reaper and rewatches of a couple of other things, Legend, things like that. The Spirit, like that's Ray Wise, but I never remember his name.
Yeah, no, he's an incredible looking human being.
He is very unique. Oh, look at that disregard for human life.
Yeah, no, they are.
Great PD,
they're definitely the bad guys.
Call for backup. Just shove that guy right off your hood.
Yeah. Well, he's getting in the way, man.
Oh no, backup is unavailable. What are we gonna do now?
Well, the smart money is stay in the car, right? But yeah.
But no, that would have stopped the plot right there.
There you go. You see, it could have been so different.
That money all over the floor.
Yeah.
Why would you just leave that in an open container? Those look like post office containers. I put it everywhere, at least Ziploc bags. It's the future. Come on.
These guys just don't care anymore, man. They're not.
No, they're definitely not winning any Gang of the Year awards.
No, well, one of the guys who watched the film, he said his theory was that this was like the gang from Heat, but like 20 years on, they've really all gone to seed and they don't care anymore, which I think really works. So they used to be elite, like, gang of thieves, and now they're just like they're really sloppy. They're burning the money when they blow the safe, and
Peeing. Just take a leak right there. Yeah.
I'm not. This is probably my least favorite moment in the entire movie. I gotta be honest. This is the one bit where I'm just like, really, you couldn't think of a different way of getting her out the plot than. I mean, I understand mechanically you need to take her out so that you can, put Murphy in the situation, but like, come on.
Yeah.
This is so like. I mean, it's just bad. It's like. There's nowhere else in the entire movie where she displays that level of incompetence as a cop, and she's come from a co-ed shower like 5 minutes ago. Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm sure she's seen that equipment before. She shouldn't be so shocked.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, she just wouldn't look. I'm sorry, but it's just bad storytelling.
It definitely is. You need the MacGuffin to advance the story.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a million ways you could take her out, though. You know what I mean? Like,
agreed. But the easiest way is sometimes the the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I guess.
Nobody move. Oh, right through the TV.
Yeah.
Tonight, dude.
And it's nice because this is like standard action movie fare so far, but we're about to hit like the first big turning point of the story, right? Where the formula just gets ripped up. Because this is like buddy movie stuff, right? And then then it just all goes horribly wrong.
Poor Murphy doesn't know what he's in for.
Nope. I gotta say though, Weller's acting in this scene is absolutely fantastic.
Agreed.
Because it's the way his face drops as he does realize just how deep the shit he's in is. It's really like, and it is his face. He doesn't, it's a very still performance, but it's so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
His Hans Gruber moment.
So, yeah. Talk to me about watching this, because like I was 11 when I saw this, and this sequence absolutely scared the shit out of me. So, do you think you were too young to appreciate what was going on, or
there was
did it freak you out, or what?
It didn't freak me out, but there was definitely stuff that went over my head. I mean, it's sort of like the first time I read a Stephen King novel. I read it and I got through it, but I probably absorbed between a quarter and a third of it, because there's just stuff that as a kid, even a well-read kid, there's stuff as a kid you don't have an experiential reference for. So I obviously understood the good and the bad here, and I understood just how vulnerable Murphy's position was. But the whole concept of law enforcement versus the guys in the street, and the nuances that just was lost on me. His expression is so perfect right there. He knows he's not giving ground.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
it's
his hand.
I don't want to get. Yeah, it's just. Yeah. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Oh, it's so gross.
Yep.
I remember watching that in frame advance on the VCR, and his hand does go flying off.
Oh yes, I remember that too.
It does go flying out of frame. It's really so horrible. So horrible. I think for me, about this sequence, these guys have a like there's an element to them that's very much like a gang of school bullies.
I can see that.
What just but like if
There's definitely a lot of torture here that you see, the type of antagonistic sadism that you see in bullies. So,
and it's the glee they take in it too.
A little bit of bullshit on part of that sequence, because he would have been in shock or dead like halfway through that. There's no way he would have lasted as long as he did. I mean it's great, but in reality, no.
No, I mean, my hand wavy fan wank for that is like it's super future body armor that kind of keeps him alive. But
he's got enhanced like police adrenaline or something. Yeah, there's
police adrenaline. That's great.
What? It's a device. It might work.
No, let's go. I'm having it. That's what it is from now on. You've sold me. I love it. I love this sequence as well. I just think this is incredibly well shot. This whole sequence, there's lots of POV work, and the kinetic camera and the odd angles and the odd lenses. I just think it's a really, really superb bit of filmmaking.
I agree. I think a lot of the camera work in RoboCop works so well because it does sort of keep you off balance, because the ways the cameras are positioned and where they're positioned definitely makes you feel a little uneasy. And it's used to great effect in certain sequences. And I think that's part of what really draws you into the film. And it makes you feel more tense than you would if it was shot more standard.
Like that's a really interesting point. Yeah.
From down here, you're automatically, if you've been in a hospital, you're automatically getting that sort of instant reaction from this, just because that, looking up at those horrible lights. And sometimes there's shots around corners where the camera's in really tight or really far, and you sort of either lean in or pull back from the scene. And I think that also has a lot of psychological effect. It's brilliant.
That's interesting. And also, I mean, as you say that, it just occurs to me, these are horror movie techniques. And although this is an action movie, this is definitely a horror sequence.
Oh, I've always thought of RoboCop as sort of a horror movie, especially the melting scene. That's just, that's not action. That's straight up horror.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, I mean, the other line I have on that is that it's also it's a retelling of Frankenstein in some ways, which is like, the first horror novel, maybe, I don't know, or certainly an early horror story. It's not the first horror novel, that was a stupid thing to say, but it's an early classic, certainly.
Definitely. And I think that imagery of him pulling away from his family is so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's cliche a bit, but it's still very powerful. It lets you know right away how he's feeling.
Yeah. And also the intercutting of the guns going off with the paddles being placed on his chest, the idea that his mind is turning the attempt to save him into flashbacks to his torture, I think is really it's just a great bit of storytelling. Again, it's really powerful stuff, I think.
And the sharp contrast between life and death.
Yeah. And again, this sequence, the going for the, you have the blackout and then the static and then this long POV shot from a TV screen. Like, what's going on now? It's so great.
It's jarring.
And I think as a kid, I didn't appreciate just how unusual this, because I hadn't seen a huge amount of movies when I saw this at 11. I just remember thinking, I thought it was brilliant, but I don't think I realized how clever it was.
Right. I definitely agree. I definitely didn't see all of the nuance here, or just how different the movie would have been if it didn't have this POV shot, if you weren't forced to really view things through Murphy's eyes, how different it could have been.
Yeah, and you just wonder, I mean, the script must have been going around for a little while, but you wonder what it would have been if they hadn't had Verhoeven or if they hadn't had Weller. I mean, there was talk of Arnie, if you can believe it, for the lead. I mean, it's just, I love Arnie, but there's no way.
No, I loved the man to death, but no, leave him in Total Recall, not RoboCop.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
We needed someone vulnerable, and we needed somebody relatable to play Murphy. And I think they made a perfect casting decision.
Mm. Yeah. And, you know, Arnie went on and made...
Sorry. I think the transformation between like a hulking wall of muscle, like mid-80s Schwarzenegger, to Robocop wouldn't have been as sharp. It wouldn't have been as divergent as someone more, you know, normal in size and stature.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It would have been very weird. And Robocop would have looked even more like a tank, wouldn't he? With that kind of barrel chest. It would have been really weird.
Right.
And, you know, Arnie went on and did Predator. So we got 2 great science fiction horror movies out of it instead of 1. I think everybody came out ahead, to be honest.
Completely agree. Look how futuristic that is.
I love this sequence.
The BIOS.
Well, it's also the fact that like the TV screen view he's got, like, I mean, we're all in 4K now, right? And this is like, it's like the old television standard for his vision. Is so funny.
Yeah, I bet he's got like 5 gig or 5 megabytes.
But again, that's the 80s vision of the future, right?
Exactly. You know, you couldn't imagine needing a gigabyte of any.
Oh, yeah, maybe 10 if they really. No.
Maybe that on my phone.
No, God, yeah, I remember them buying a desktop PC.
Yep. There's some of our futuristic lights. There you go.
There you go. See, some of this is. The other thing I like about this whole sequence is how long it takes before you get an actual shot of Robocop.
I agree. And when you do see him, like right there, he is kind of blurred out and he's kind of in shadow. So there is that moment, right? When he turns the corner, here it's coming. Here it is. There's this tension that comes before you actually see him. And you don't see his face. A lot of play there. And then when you finally get to see his face, there's this moment of just shock and awe that I don't think you would have had if you didn't have that lead up. If they were just like, oh, well, here he is. This is what he looks like now. And we see things from the cops' perspectives too.
Yes.
And you can sort of get from all of their expressions, like there's our first shot of him, and it's not overly dramatic. I mean, there's not a lot of difference in the way this was shot versus the way it was shot 2 seconds ago when they were showing him from behind, but it is dramatic because you're looking at this as the new reality for him and for his coworkers too.
And also in that first shot, like he's very quickly again partly obscured by the cage. Even then, when you first see him, it's only a glimpse of the full figure before this, it's obscured again. It's really, really smart, I think.
I agree. Tastes like baby food.
I'm not going to say what it looks like. Okay.
I love her glasses.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like peak 80s glasses, aren't they? They're fantastic.
Absolutely.
I do think the Robocop suit design as well is one of the absolute triumph. I think it just looks completely spectacular. I don't think there's anything like it out there,
I think it's one of the best modernized things in the movie. I mean, especially the sort of monocular vision on his glasses. Or I don't know what you'd call that, a vision plate, a visor?
A visor, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is especially well done because it immediately takes him from human to alien.
Yeah, it's so depersonalizing, isn't it? Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. Which, I mean, there is an odd question there about why give him a human face and then stick a mask over it so that he can't use it, because the logic of a human face is to help pacify it. But then it's very clear that this guy, not interested in him actually being a cop. He's a soldier, right? He's a tool of urban pacification, in the same way that ED-209 was. He's just better at it.
Yep. Every one of them needs to take a step back. Have they ever fired an actual weapon? Come on. Oh,
You have opinions about the realism in this scene, I can tell.
I do. I am a gun owner. That's
Okay.
a thing here in the States, and
Sure,
I've
sure.
spent a lot of time at ranges, and they're leaning very far forward for what I'd expect. The shield should be able to keep bullet casings from flying into the guy next to you, and some
Right.
of them have their guns so far forward that the shield wouldn't have done anything.
It's almost as if the film was directed by a European who didn't really know much about that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, almost like that. Nice.
So here's a fun bit of trivia about that catch. That took over 50 takes.
Wow.
Because his glove is made of rubber, and the keys kept bouncing off his hand.
Oh, I'm sure that must have been difficult. I mean, the payoff's there, but wow.
I'd love to see that blooper reel of like 49 takes of him walking and just bouncing off his hand.
I mean, at a certain point, I just would have given up and said, let's do it in reverse. Just throw the keys, and then we'll reverse it in editing.
You'd imagine the point where they're like, take 39. But it is a great. Oh, and here we go. Now, I think of this as the Judge Dredd portion of the show, right? Because this is where he's just pure, you know, all of the criminals are completely vicious, psychopathic bad guys, and he's just cleaning house. This is such a fun sequence, though. I think I do love this. I love this guy. I love how over the top he is.
He is very over the top.
Ridiculous.
You have no questions that he is a bad man. This isn't somebody you have any.
I mean, what is that? What is that gun? I mean, it's like
an assault rifle. I haven't gotten a great look at it because he's holding it kind of weird, but it's an assault rifle. That much I can tell you.
Okay.
Might be an M5. It's really hard to get a good look at it.
I mean,
I love that effect too, like the destruction. Like Robocop is unharmed, and then there's all this stuff exploding around him. Oh, right through the milk.
Oh, it's great.
And
I think that's the power fantasy, right? No, sorry,
yeah. That definitely takes the humanity. If there was any doubt that he is no longer Murphy, if he's no longer human, it's that thank you for your cooperation. That tone and the reaction to, hey, I just killed a guy. That's definitely not him. Oh, look at that guy's hair. Talk about 80s hair. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, this is the the
bleach
sub Billy Idol look. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I don't even know.
No, it's not a good look. It's
really not.
And again, with the silhouette on the wall.
These are criminals. We feel no sympathy for them. It's almost sort of a retrograde shoving in your face how bad they are. I mean, there's no half-assing this. These guys
no, this is dirty. This is Dirty Harry stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Look at that knife.
Yeah. Yeah. What the hell is that knife, man? So we're perfectly happy with the Robocop solution.
Right in the dick.
Yeah.
Why does creep in his vernacular? I mean, come on.
Because you've got to get the Judge. That's the Judge Dredd reference. It's got to be in there.
But creep is in his vernacular. That they put that into his memory bank.
Well, the theory is no, that's from Murphy, isn't it? That's the idea. Is that's the stuff that does get carried through. Because later it's Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me, which was a Murphy line. So
right.
I guess creep was in Murphy's vernacular. I don't know. That's the idea.
It makes sense.
I mean, the real reason is because they wanted to get a Judge Dredd reference in, obviously. But you know. Oh, I love this sequence. Really, this is just so much fun. I think one of the things I like about this is the presence of the media, because there's a gag where they start to interview the SWAT guy, and then Robocop turns up, and all the cameras just pull away from him and go straight over to Robocop. Like that, you know, it's just really, really fun.
I do also like the mics here. Yeah, there we go. I like the mics here because they're using pen mics, which nobody but Bob Barker used post 1989. So here's the future gone again.
But in '87, they were futuristic. That's the thing.
Exactly. Now we've gone back to the big fluffy things, or collar mics, but in '87, that was totally what everybody would be using.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so funny, isn't it? How quickly the future dates. I think it's really like.
And how old you feel looking back at it.
Oh, let's not do that. I just love what a schlub this guy is. You know, it's just like his list of demands are just completely incoherent, and he's just, you know.
He's definitely not having a good day.
It's really not. See, bless him.
A new car. I want the city to pay for it.
And he's eating a chocolate bar. Like he's like a 12-year-old trying to tantrum.
Oh,
it's such a joy.
He doesn't even know what he really wants.
No, he doesn't. Well, it's that line, I want to recount, and no matter how it goes, I want my old job back. Like, I mean, we've all been there, right? But you'd hope you'd just kind of, you know, most of us just sort of go home and kick the cat or something. We don't take everyone hostage. Oh, dear. Oh.
Punch right through the wall.
Yep.
Oh, his day got worse. Punch through the window. Crash.
And then straight to the news footage.
Yeah. Well, you can't actually show the, you know, non-survival of that guy.
No, but I just love the filmmaking. I love the way the storytelling flows straight into the, you know, the news broadcast, which doubles as an act break. You know, it's like, okay, so that's the Judge Dredd bit out of the way, and here's, you know, meanwhile elsewhere in the world. I mean, it's just such good storytelling.
It is. And I also love how there's a distinct line between the, okay, we're going to show you something bloody and violent and terrible, and okay, we're going to show you something a little tamer. Those breaks are always very clear. There's never any, oops, surprise blood. It's always, you know, it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
play that game.
Good stuff.
Saying, I would play that game. That looks like fun.
You know what? Someone really needs to Kickstarter that sucker, because that could. There's money to be made. I'm just saying. And I love how much of the news is taken up with OCP stories as well. You kind of wonder if the news station is part owned by Omni Consumer Products or something. It's got that kind of corporate news vibe to it somehow.
It definitely does. And there's a sameness too to the way they're presented, which sort of speaks to corporate messaging behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And the neon lights, look at all the neon lights inside an office building.
It's an interesting thing. I have to remind myself, like when Robocop was made, there was no, oh, look at him.
Look at the bathroom.
But like, you know, in '87 there was no Fox News.
Yep. We didn't have the fancy LED light bulbs either. Look at that number, or the news bars above the urinals. I'm like, really? We'd have LED TVs.
stock prices, I think it's meant to be. Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. Just when the guy is weed himself rather than stick around.
I practically hear like the Imperial March playing behind him.
It really is, isn't it? It's just like, here comes the bad guy. I mean, they're both scumbags, aren't they? But like, you can tell which one's the arch scumbag, the one who's really had the practice.
Scumbags.
Yeah.
Scumbag Junior there is only, 95% a terrible human being. The other guy is like 110% terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just picture him having like a smoothie made of puppies for breakfast.
Oh, totally. Well, my thing is like, later on we get the video of him like gloating about, as he kills the guy off. Like, my theory is he's got an entire DVD collection of those at home. That his idea of,
Only it's the 80s, so they're all VHS tapes.
No, but this movie does predict DVDs.
Point.
It's actually one of the few things it does that is a bit futuristic. The acting in this scene is just glorious. I love how Miguel Ferrer just tries to front it out, but he's clearly completely cacking himself. It's really good.
He has no confidence anymore, and I like the way that Ferrer handled that when he's in a room with the other guys. He's definitely got that cock of the walk strut.
Yeah.
And here we see him completely debased.
Yes.
That cockiness is gone.
Yeah. No, and he's no, it's good. Hello there.
She only sounds like she's possessed. She's not actually possessed.
Okay, that's good. Sounds like she has very strong opinions about something.
Her only very strong opinions involve milk bones and cheeseburgers.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to know that I respect those opinions, whatever they are.
Look at his oscilloscopes behind his head.
Yeah.
Those things are giant. What are they even there for?
Who knows, man? Who knows?
They look cool, but that's about it. I don't know what you'd be measuring.
I like I get nostalgic for the styrofoam McDonald's. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, the old Big Macs.
I mean, I shouldn't be nostalgic about it because I'm sure there's still several 100,000 of them in landfills up and down the nation. But
I'm sure
they'll probably outlast the human race. But
no. Centuries, millennia from now, they'll be digging those up and going, "What do you think ancient civilizations put in these things?"
Yeah, that's it. I think they use them as portable fire starting kits or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, our brilliant legacy.
Yeah, there you go.
The Rosetta Stone.
I mean, no, I like your
King Tut.
I like your version though. I like your version where there are future humans, though. I gotta say, it's more optimistic than me. So.
Well, I didn't say they'd be humans. They could totally be from other planets.
No, that's true. Yeah, no.
Archaeological digs are universal.
Yeah. No, that's true. Well, intergalactic visitors trying to figure out what was up with this species exactly.
There's a horrible theory. I can't remember where I read it. There's a theory that says that there are hundreds or thousands of planets as advanced or more advanced than ours, but we'll never meet them because any society that becomes sufficiently capable of space travel will destroy itself first. And I'm looking at where we are right now, and I'm like, God damn it, that's right. We're going to destroy ourselves before we ever walk on Mars.
It's the Great Filter is the name of the theory. Yeah, it's a horrible one, isn't it? When you hear it, it's got an awful plausibility to it.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Trying to remember what I read about. I think it does Ligotti riff on that. I got a feeling that it's something that Ligotti's got into at some point. I don't know, but maybe I'm getting muddled in my head. But yeah, it is. I know exactly what you're talking about, and yeah, it's really like, thanks for that. So we've had this is great too, because this is so we had the act break, and now of course he's had the dream, and this is where the story starts to turn. This is where, in fact, Robot here from this point, Murphy starts to kind of surface little bit by little bit. It's a real pivotal moment in the story.
Well, we also have gone a little too long without more blood and violence, so we've got to get back into that.
Yeah. It won't be too much longer. I love how I just love how the first thing that the suits do is find someone not in a suit to blame for all of this as well.
Of course, that's normal.
Yeah, it's totally like
you set him off. Your fault.
Yeah.
Don't talk to that guy. He's a highly advanced computer. Your feminine wiles might confuse his turbos or something. I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what? It's so like, yeah. I think the fact that it is the woman that gets the blame is particularly like, yeah, this is welcome to corporate.
Yes. A little too close to home.
Yeah. But you wanted more blood, guts, and violence, and I believe we have some, and not to mention explosions. I think we've got coming up here. So
who doesn't love a good explosion?
Oh, that's what it's all about, man.
Saw somebody joking about Michael Bay's next film just being Michael Bay explosions. I'm like, I would watch that. I would watch explosions. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I had Edward Lawn on the show a couple of weeks back. Actually, I haven't released the episode yet, but he was like, he said, at least say what you like about Michael Bay, at least he still actually really blows stuff up. Like, it's not all CGI.
Completely agreed.
Someone out there still likes a real fireball. I guess that's it.
Doesn't it dangle get caught in his collar? I mean, I don't know. I can't wear dangly earrings, but I'd imagine that would be a hazard because he's got the collared leather jacket. So I'd worry that he's going to like rip his own ear off or something.
Well, man, he's a rebel. He don't play by the rules.
That's true. Devil may care.
Yeah.
Ear may rip off. Who cares? Let's staple it on. They could do that in the future.
This guy is not a pragmatist. Let's be honest. He's really not.
Well, he spends a lot of time shaving his carefully sculpted sideburns.
Yeah, and that's a weird thing to spend that much time on, considering how terrible it looks. Like, it feels really.
Like, why is your jawline exposed? What is the significance of that?
Yeah, why would you want to permanently look like you'd cut your face? I don't like why. It's a very strange look.
This is a brilliant moment. I love this moment.
Yeah.
Because you gotta wonder, his expression right there, he's like, I know you, and you gotta wonder, does it click home?
Yeah.
Does he really does he have time to full circle it before? I mean, he's got we killed you, but does he realize what he's seeing? Or is he so far in panic at this point that it's just fight or flight or react?
And also Weller, I think, is amazing too. I mean, he's got 2 inches of jaw to act with, and yet he looks completely, he's totally thrown.
Uh-oh. Boom.
Yeah. Here's one hell of a stunt as well. Agreed.
Even though it's, again, logistically impossible, that's not how explosions work. But it just looks cool, so I'm not going to fight it too much. You get a lot of
future explosion, okay?
Yeah, totally. And the juxtaposition between the background with the flames still running and then, our our dead or dying man right there. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
The shot is just
Yeah. It's gorgeous. Yeah. And then the very quick cut to the back to the Robocop POV, and this this is hilarious, of course, because this is like, you've got a phone in your pocket that has more processing power than this shit that he's walking past.
I love the server rack. I'm like, wow, that is that real tape that thing's running? Because it looks like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The finger. Why would you
It's like you couldn't even run.
Why would you put it in his middle finger? I mean, I get it. It's very, significant. But I don't think I'd give it middle finger.
But it just because it looks that cool when he does it.
Wanted to give the finger to somebody. I could see that, but like, I mean, I guess there's a worse place he could have put it, but only one.
That would have been a very different movie at that point. But I do love that it's basically a USB. I mean, it's cooler looking, but it is basically USB. So.
Essentially.
And active work going on there as well, by the way.
He's got a rap.
Yeah, no, he certainly does. I think he might be the bad guy. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. He's got glasses.
Oh, well. So maybe he's an intellectual artist. Who can tell? So confusing.
No. Ouch.
Yeah. That's such a great moment.
Yeah.
Great photo of Weller there as well. I think he looks so good in that black and white.
Of that shot from the hospital. The coming home with the same angle.
Yeah. That's a good catch. I hadn't spotted that, but yeah, it is, isn't it? That's really, yeah. Huh. I enjoy so much how the movie just slows right down for the sequence. It's such a breakneck pacing throughout the whole thing, but here they really let this moment breathe. They really let it just, stretch out and let it play. I think it's really, really smart.
The lighting here is also really jarring. It's a sharp contrast to the lighting in the rest of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a ton of natural light in this house, isn't there? It's really it's really spacious.
And nowhere else do we see things like flowers. There's natural elements here that are very different.
No, that's right, because we're always either in some horrendous corporate boardroom or some scuzzy street scene, right? This is the only time. Either way, it's incredibly urban. This is the only time you get anything remotely. I mean, this is suburban, I guess, but you know what I mean? Like it's just got a bit of humanity, I guess, really, isn't it? It's just a bit of
Definitely.
Huh.
I don't know if anyone would just leave all that food just right there like that.
It's weird. I'm not entirely convinced any of that stuff's there.
That's an interesting take.
I'm just not. I don't know, but it feels very weird because I agree. It doesn't make any sense that you'd have the burned book and the half the photograph and I don't know.
It would make sense if he was just imagining things that he knew would fit, and the dedication of the life that he had. It's powerful imagery.
Yeah. And you're right, because now we're getting the replaying of these are the hallucinations he had as he was dying, aren't they? These are like the same scenes.
Yep. And it's sort of that 360, like he left and now he's sort of returning. That's a really weird room. Why do you have a closet in the middle of the room?
Yeah, I don't know. But there's also a sense in which he's become a ghost, right? Like he's haunting his own house.
Yeah. Well, he's dead, so.
Yeah.
Arrest mode. Da-na-na.
And this is the most 80s nightclub in cinema, I think.
Absolutely.
This is just like...
Oh, absolutely. Like the
dear.
San Junipero episode of Black Mirror. I imagine they're looking at stuff like this for how to model their nightclub.
Yeah.
Oh no, Ray Wise.
I think as well oh yeah, no, don't do that. Don't do that, dude.
Don't go kick him in the crotch. He's got a titanium crotch. He's gonna break the butt.
I mean, you can see how historically it's a move that's worked very well, but on this particular occasion.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd kick a robotic guy in the crotch. It's probably not what I'd go for. I'd probably throw a drink in his face, honestly.
I mean, to be fair, it's the 80s. Ray Wise is probably so high he doesn't realize the guy's even a robot. He's just...
Yeah, point. Those are some cool sunglasses. Oh, wait.
Exactly. Yeah, you know. To be fair, in that club, Robocop doesn't really look that out of place, I don't think. I mean, you know.
What? I love how that's clearly powdered sugar. Like, there's no question of what that is. Like, I get you needed a cocaine stand-in that didn't taste disgusting, but you could mix a little cornstarch in, something to make it not look like you just dumped it out of a bag of powdered sugar.
And it's weird because it's the 80s.
It's very familiar. A texture, man.
It's the 80s. Yeah, exactly. You know they know what texture cocaine is, right? You know that they knew that didn't look good.
Everyone on this movie knew exactly what cocaine looked like.
Exactly. Very, very strange. Odd choice. Oh, here we go.
I love that line. Do you know who I am? How many people do that? Like, does it matter who you are?
It's also, again, though, it's a character note, isn't it? Like, he's trying to front it out. Like, that's this guy all over. Every scene he's in, he's trying to front up, and he's not quite there.
Exactly.
And then the real villain
does not walk the walk.
Exactly. Yeah, that's him. And he's, you know, and ultimately here he is now. He's completely outplayed by someone who's, you know, the real deal.
Which is funny to me, because why would he, with his resources, why would he hire Bodeker? I mean, this guy is like the worst. Why would you hire him? I mean, I get that he's ruthless, but there have to be, you know, better class of ruthless people here. Yeah, you've got the money. Don't take the lowest bid. That guy just licked a grenade.
For me, the single biggest unanswered question in this entire narrative is, what is the relationship between Clarence and Dick Jones? There clearly is a history there. There's clearly, you know what I mean? They've clearly been working together for a while. I have so many questions about what is going on with those two guys, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely some subtext we're not fully exploring.
Yeah. I mean, and I like that. I like that there's that mystery, but I don't need it explaining necessarily by the film. But it does fascinate, because they, you know, their relationship, they only get one scene together, which is later on, but it's just the dynamic between them is so interesting. And I just find myself like, how did they meet? How did they become, you know, whatever it is they are? You know, how did that whole thing happen?
Probably involved cocaine.
It seems fairly likely.
It involved cocaine.
That would be the common denominator, wouldn't it? You'd have thought. Mm-hmm. Oh, and the cocaine factory.
Yep. Because it's so hard to see with all those bright open windows.
Yeah, right. It's very well concealed.
Yeah. You certainly weren't worried about getting caught.
Somebody else pointed this out to me as well. It's hilarious. All the people working on the machines are wearing masks, but all the people who have fully automatic weapons and are guarding are not, because they're the ones who really want to be wired out of their minds. Right?
That is an excellent point.
You know?
Probably catching a good bit of it. You know, it's actually a filter.
frankly, it's the only thing that makes sense out of this whole scene and this confrontation is everyone in it is just completely wired, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely explains his smiles.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this isn't a situation I'd be smiling about, but everyone's sort of wearing like a half smirk.
Yeah.
You're high as a kite. I get it. I'm down.
And they're also like trying not to grind their teeth, right? It's all. This is delightful, though. Again, it's just, the Clarence Bonica's just such a maniac. Like, why is he picking this fight? Why isn't he just buying the cocaine? Why has he got to turn it into a confrontation,
Well, if he's high as a kite, I guess that makes sense.
There you go. Asked and answered.
This seems like a great idea. No. Yeah. You're going to regret this when you're sober.
I don't think he's ever going to be sober, to be fair.
Boom.
Oh, yes. Knock, knock.
I wonder if Robocop is he worried about a contact high? Or is there no humanity left that could actually get high? Because he's like walking through a cloud of powdered cocaine right now.
That's a really interesting thought. Because
standing there.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, he could inhale it if nothing else. I mean, there are some organics. Does Robocop even breathe? There's a question for you.
Good question.
I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how much, but he's got a digestive tract. We know that.
He's got
a brain. Yeah, I don't know.
Some kind of ocular thing going on.
Yep. Although the indication is that although we do later see he still has physical eyes, but there's clearly camera lenses behind them because when we see from his perspective, it's a camera view.
Yeah. Something has to be interpreted.
But yeah, does he? Yeah, but does he breathe? And if not, how does he oxygenate the blood that's going around his system?
Yeah.
That's a thought that's going to fester now. Maybe he spends the rest of the movie off his tits on cocaine. That might explain it. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's how he breaks the programming, because that's what starts to happen here. He starts to break away from his, because the way he arrests Clarence is very non-standard. Maybe that is the cocaine working on him. I like that.
That makes sense. There is a lot of cocaine.
There certainly is.
There's like clouds of it, and you can't tell what's gun smoke and what's cocaine.
No, but there's a lot of cocaine.
Oh, vodka, right?
Crunchy.
And now you can't tell what's plaster and what's cocaine.
Yes, yeah.
Ew.
Oh, yes.
I wonder if he has to worry about like bacterial infection. Probably gnarly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'd assume that he's got a fairly steady supply of antibiotics shooting around him, but who knows?
You'd hope, but they're not really specific about that.
Yeah. That is so gross, the way he spits that blood. I mean, Clarence keeps doing that too. Like, he's really Clarence is really into spitting blood. I don't know what that's.
It's all he's got. I mean, at this point, he's like, well, I know I'm not going to make it through this, so.
Yeah.
My only weapon left is to spit blood at you like I was some kind of desert toad.
Oh, dear. I do like that as well, though. I love how he goes through, in the space of being thrown through 3 windows, he goes from cocky to completely terrified. That's a really good, transition, which, to be fair, I think you'd only have to throw me through 1 window and I'd make the transition. But
I also like how he's exhibiting signs of shock.
Yeah.
And you can attribute it to physical trauma, to the cocaine, or to, hey, I shot this guy a bunch of times and now he's here and he's going to fuck me up. So All of the above, maybe. There's definitely a lot of causes for that kind of blank, shocked, dazed look he's got right now.
Absolutely. It's a reasonable response to the stimulus he's been faced with. The state of his face as well. Christ.
There's the spitting blood again. That's
There
all you
is. See? It's a motif at this point, frankly.
How does he get all the spit? It's like work it up there.
Well, again, I mean, I'm assuming he doesn't have much in the way of a nasal cavity anymore. I mean, I'm assuming that he's kind of burned away most of that. So maybe there's an excess of mucus. I don't know, but yeah.
Could be. He's also got to stay hydrated because
That's a good point. Yeah. Let's face it, he's not living the healthiest of lifestyles.
No, he's not. This was an inevitable end.
Yeah, it's true. Retirement at 70 was never on the cards for this guy, was it?
No.
And here we go. The other thing I like about this, so here we are at I think we're at around the hour mark, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And he's, Robocop's solved the case. He's cracked it. He knows who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
And I remember the first viewing and just being like, what's going to happen now? I couldn't see where the rest of the story was coming from.
So much neon.
Yes.
We've seen that colorful monitor thing like 5 or 6 times. And as many times as I've seen this movie, I've never been able to determine what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's odd.
Is it just completely decorative? Are those wavy lines supposed to show something? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't match the aesthetic anywhere else in the building. You have this one round thing where everything else is very, very rigid, and all the lines are very sharp, and all the angles are very hard. And then we just got this one round thing, and it's the one rainbow thing in a world of black and white and gray. It's just weird.
I almost wonder if it's maybe it's corporate art, maybe it's going to be sculpture or something.
Yeah, that could be.
Which explains why it doesn't fit with the rest of the aesthetic. It's that one thing they bought in from that one guy, and he was meant to do a load of them, but they didn't really like it, so they only paid for the first one, but they had to put it up because they paid for it now.
Yeah.
The twist.
I work in a very corporate office, and it's in an old automobile assembly plant that they totally made over into office buildings. And we have a giant, I don't know what you'd actually call it. It's like a system of gears, I guess. That's our art.
Okay.
And it looks like that. It's very out of place. But they wanted to pay homage to the fact that it used to be an assembly plant for one of the major car manufacturers.
Right.
So it's that same kind of a juxtaposition of what is that doing here?
Why is that? Yeah.
This is such a painful sequence for me.
Really?
Like personal level. I mean, think about it. Think about what he's confronted with. I mean, Murphy had to go through all that hell, and now Robocop is, he's used to being indomitable. He's a force of nature. And now he's confronted with, hey, I've got the bad guy, and oh, wait, I'm not all that anymore. He's got something bigger. And that's just, I mean, even as robotic as he is, that's gotta knock him down a peg or two.
Absolutely. And he takes such a battering in this sequence. I mean, it's an absolute massacre, isn't it? It's like
he's used to being so impervious. I mean, people have shot him with assault weapons and nothing has touched him. And now that scene right there, you see his eye. That's just so powerful a shot.
Yeah. And again, I remember that freaking me out as a kid because I wasn't sure there were eyes behind the visor. So that really scared me. It's like, what is going on under there,
Yeah. The fear of the unknown.
Yeah. Well, and the partial reveal is the scariest of all, right?
Right. Well, they did shoot him in the head. I mean, the kill shot, Murphy's kill shot, they shot him in the head. And that would do damage. I mean, we saw what that same gun did to his hand. So
Yeah. And now he's literally, he's fleeing, right? That's it.
Retreat and.
And then a moment of
comedy. Where do you put your foot? Oh no, it's a big foot. The stairs are too small. Oh, you're top heavy. Could go over. Oh, and down he goes. Oh.
How many action movies would combine a moment of that much pathos with something that funny? I mean, that's just wonderful.
Needed.
Yeah, that's true.
If you'd given this a darker note here, I think it would weigh very heavily on the audience. But now you've got sort of the lightness and the levity of that robot's on his back trying to stand up. So there's a little bit of relief. There's a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah. And it's so broad too. I mean, it's slapstick, isn't it? It's really Oh, it's a lovely moment. And I like the little character note there where the cops from his precinct refuse to take part.
Yeah.
But notice the guy who's leading the assault is the guy who was the head of the hostage negotiation earlier.
Yeah, he had a bone to pick with Robocop anyway.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, he's quite happy to do this because you upstaged me in front of the media, so yeah, payback's a bitch and all that.
Totally.
But again, yeah, this is tough for me.
It definitely, between the two sequences here, we've got a long way to showing how alone he really is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And there's something too about, like, it's you feel like you're part of something. I mean, one of the things about whether it's the armed services or the police or firemen, any job like that, where part of it is that you wear a uniform and part of it is that you have a code and you have people around you, like it's there's that camaraderie and that feeling that you're all on the same side. And for him, that was an illusion that's just been torn away, right, by finding out that he doesn't have the power of a normal cop because he can't arrest the real bad guy. And suddenly now all of his brethren, or almost all of them, have turned on him. Like, all of his certainties are just destroyed in that moment,
And then we go back to, he's not alone anymore, but now the dynamic is shifted.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
No longer a weapon of good. He's now a fugitive.
Yeah.
And whatever part of Murphy is still left inside of there has to really feel that. Dino!
And then we've got a dinosaur. Yes.
Well, during this time, I was absolutely obsessed with the dinosaurs attack cards. I don't know if you had those over there.
No.
I was obsessed with them. So seeing this in the movie, I was definitely a good moment. I was hoping he was going to eat the kids, though. Those cards are really violent, and they were shockingly violent. And
okay.
yeah, they were. There was Mars attacks and dinosaurs attack, and they were right around the same time with the same kind of idea. They were trading cards, and the front had graphic pictures, and the back had sort of a story.
Huh.
About how scientists brought dinosaurs from the past into the present day, and they just, wreaked havoc on everything.
I'm gonna have to look this up. This sounds fair. I know I'm familiar with Mars Attacks because of the movie, but I didn't know about Dinosaur Attack. That's great.
Yeah, definitely look it up because they're phenomenal. There's a book they released not too long ago. I want to say it was last year or the year before.
Yeah, no, I'll check that out. It sounds cool. I'm always fascinated by stuff like, stuff that's ostensibly aimed at kids, but it's really, and the 80s was a good decade for that, man. The quote unquote kids entertainment. It's just, I mean, like, I saw Temple of Doom at the cinema when I was like 5 or something, and it was like, what the hell is going on, like torture porn for kids. I mean, it was a weird decade.
It really was. Yeah, you look so hot right now, Buttiker. She's just dying.
Yeah, she's all about that, mate. Yeah, well done. The move with the chewing gum I thought was very smooth too.
That's wild. Yeah.
It's just like...
There you go.
Because I understand that's, you know, what ladies really like is pre-chewed chewing gum. That's, you know, that's
absolutely.
just...
Well, in the future, maybe she can use that DNA for something. You never know.
Yeah, but what though? I mean, Clarence Boddicker repellent is the only thing you'd want to make out of it, surely. And I love this scene. This is, and again, the only scene these two get together is this one. But and I just, I love it. I love the anger and the you know, the
power dynamic here is just fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the only person we've seen who isn't completely cowed.
Right. And someone was saying,
crazy? Because we've seen Boddicker display clear signs of being pathologically disturbed.
Yep.
But is that it? Is it because he has no fear?
No, that's right. But there's also, to what degree are they envious of each other? I think that's I can't remember who it was I was talking to who said that to me, but it really stuck with me. The idea that the Boddicker like craves the acceptability, Dick Jones craves the kind of freedom of id that Clarence represents, you know?
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
It's like they kind of mirror darkly of each other.
Environment. And I definitely think he probably has fantasies about killing people a little bit more directly, and Boddicker gets to do that. So that's an excellent point.
Whereas, you know, Boddicker has to deal with the day-to-day insecurity of just being being in a street gang and all the danger associated with that. And he must, you know, part of him must surely crave the stability of the, you know, the money and the paycheck and the safe neighborhood and all that kind of stuff.
And the health insurance.
Right. Yeah, good fucking point, of course, the health insurance, yeah. Given what state his face is in.
Yep.
Ah, yes. Back in the scrap yard.
I don't know what he needs to go for. Ew. I don't see any screws. What is he even drilling right now? I mean, that's...
no, it is.
I didn't see that screw there like every other time we've looked at his head.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of sunken, so maybe it was just disguised.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they're recessed, but I love this.
The fear on her face, just what am I gonna see?
It's a great bit of acting.
It is.
Because again, it's not big. You know, she's not overselling the moment at all. It's note perfect.
I think if she had played it up even a degree more, it would have been too much.
Oh, it would have been horrible. It would have been it would have been melodrama. But she nails it, and you can see how like she's again she's fronting it out, you know.
Yeah, you can see that she's uncomfortable, and then she's trying to put on a strong face for him, but she clearly doesn't feel it.
Yeah. No, it's really good. But what a piece of, I mean, what an effect. Because you'd CGI that, you wouldn't think twice. That they built that. Someone spent hours, you know, crafting that. Yeah.
The amount of detail and the amount of love that had to be, you know, to make something like that.
And it just kind of hurts my brain to look at, because I mean, I've seen documentaries and I've read books on how they did it, so I know intellectually how it was done, but the illusion is so perfectly rendered that I just, every time I stare at it, I'm just like, I'm just captivated by it all over again. It's fantastic.
Pretty perfect, even by today's standards. Some of the other effects in this movie don't hold up. That does.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely top drawer. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I don't think you could. I mean, it would be easier to do it with CGI, but I don't think it would be any better.
Not at all. I think CGI. I mean, even if you look at some of the CGI that's only a couple of years old, it already looks fake.
It's amazing how quick it dates, isn't it? I was thinking that the other day. I can't remember. Oh, I was channel hopping. I caught a bit of one of the Brosnan James Bonds, and it had a CGI sequence in it, and I was like, oh my god,
did this ever look real?
Yeah.
One of the first Lord of the Rings trilogy. I was watching Lord of the Rings. I was like, wow, this does not look as good as I remember.
Yeah, Fellowship's got some really ropey moments in it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Especially the Moria sequence, right? There's a couple there where it's like, and I remember losing my shit over that when I first saw it, you know, and now it's like, ooh.
I think our slider just gets pushed slowly, just nudged. You don't realize how fast it's happening.
Yeah. Meanwhile, here's the gang.
Yeah. Has Ray Wise ever not been the king of cool? No matter what he's doing, he's always swap. Well, I guess in Jeepers Creepers 2, he's not really that cool. He's a farmer, but still.
Yeah. No, he's a dude. Absolutely. And I love how much fun he's having in this. I mean, he's clearly just
they're all toasted. They're completely baked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The 80s. They're just pocketed some of the extra cocaine on their way out.
You know it. It's like, this is just like, I don't know, this is just pure kids stuff as well, isn't it? Just running around blowing shit up. It's just
absolutely
childish glee.
Woo!
Yeah. That last big explosion, the actor lost his eyebrows on that one.
Wow.
Yeah, they actually did overload they overloaded that particular fireball, and he lost his eyebrows. I mean, they grew back, but you know.
Yeah, but still.
It was a bad moment.
I'm sure. At least they got it on film. It wasn't wasted.
Exactly. No, it was it was really fun.
Something about the juxtaposition of the fire from the hydrant, or the water from the hydrant and the fire, is really fascinating too.
Yeah.
They're forces of destruction, but they're very different forces of destruction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice image, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then we're back, and this is another quiet moment, and it's really the last quiet moment. Because we know the bad guys are coming, and we know the big kind of showdown's about to happen.
Yeah, the epic climax, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's all been leading up to this.
But before that, we've got this thing of like, he can't shoot straight. He's lost his mojo, you know.
Yeah. A little messed up. Don't shoot your food. You're gonna need that energy. It's gonna look really gross anyway.
Yeah, that's true. It's cool though, and I just like the teamwork moment of it. You know, I like the fact that she's like, okay, here's what you need to do, and just, you know.
I like the reversal too, because in other movies, when you see someone helping someone else shoot, it's always a guy leaning over a girl, and there's always something very sexual about it. So I like in that sequence, she's leaning behind him, and it's not sexual at all.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, I don't think I'd really thought about that, but you're right. It's an absolutely classic scene, but the gender reversal and the fact that it's I mean, it's collegiate, isn't it? Right? They're colleagues. They work together. They're partners. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing more to it than that. But it's really, it's really well played.
I don't think him is human anymore either. She may know him, but that's not the most she knows.
Sure, but it's one of the things I really like in the whole film is, it's kind of underdeveloped in the grand scheme of things, but I love their relationship. I just love how kind of, the fact that it is platonic and it is, and it's just like a working friendship. I think it's really well played, and it's just because it's so unusual in this kind of fiction. There's always a romantic connection,
Completely agreed. I love the fact that she's a female lead, but she's not a romantic lead.
Yeah.
I really wish, like you said earlier, that they hadn't made her the scapegoat for the initial sort of descent.
Yeah.
But I think that her role in this movie is very well defined for what it is.
Yeah, and I like the way that Nancy Allen just pretends that scene didn't happen for the rest of the film. And suppose the rest of the film is just this super competent, I think it's great. It's a really good performance.
Where are all those sparks coming from?
Oh, just,
Sparks.
Well, the big guns are partly loaded with fireworks. It's
oh, of course.
Obviously. The score's really good on this bit as well. I love this kind of it's almost like a Western march with the whistles and the bells. It's really fun.
Agreed.
Oh.
It definitely feels very showdown.
Yeah.
All of the elements lead up to that. The cinematography and the vocal, or not the vocal work, the music. All of it very much leads to the showdown.
Yep. Yeah, and there's lovely wide angle shots as well. The whole thing is beautiful. Oh, here we go.
The melting scene.
It's like, toxic waste that's just not a good thing to be bathing in. I think it's like,
ew.
This never ends well.
It's a little street trash moment for you there.
Oh yeah, man. I think there's a little bullet reference later as well. I think we get a hubcap flying off at one point, which is lovely. But yeah. It's very tight action sequences as well.
Yeah.
Like again, you're never really lost as to what's going on. It's very well it's well edited. Oh jeez.
There's the hubcap.
Oh jeez.
Ew, gross. Now you're getting the toxic bits on him.
And again, like how many hours in the makeup chair for like 40 seconds of total screen time,
Yeah.
The dedication to the art is just great.
The payoff was worth it, but
oh my God.
I can't imagine how long that must have taken. It must have been heavy too, because it's probably solid latex.
Yeah.
Ew, right in the middle. Like a water balloon.
Oh yeah, no, he just bursts open. It's so gross. I kind of think like, the waste was eating him up from the inside and he was just physically weakened, like, it's just so disgusting.
Kind of acid, some kind of corrosive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, oh. But you're right, that's pure horror movie. It's
absolutely.
So
this whole sequence, there's so many horror elements with his broken glasses, and there's a lot of symbolism here.
Yeah. Oh, blood, right? Just everyone's beaten up. Everyone's.
The angle here, all of the shots are just so beautifully done. They managed to evoke feelings of distance and feelings of hopelessness with just a camera angle. That's really impressive.
I adore this sequence. And it's quite complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, but you're never lost.
It's impressive.
And it keeps you in suspense. Like, you don't know how it's going to play out, how the elements are going to play out in the next sort of 15 seconds. It's so good.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's just that gut drop. Every single time I see that scene, it's just the same feeling of like,
Yeah.
even though you know how it ends, there's just that.
Yeah. No, but in the moment.
Yep.
Oh,
And this whole thing is so well acted.
yes.
Right in the head.
Oh, yes.
Blood spray. They did not go
That's what
skimming on blood here. So much blood.
No, it's such a great death as well, though, isn't it? The way he staggers about, clutching his throne. Just, it's wonderful.
Yeah. And then that middle finger came into play again.
There it was. Yeah, Chekhov's middle finger. I remember being so glad that she wasn't dead as well. I was so convinced, like first couple of times, first time.
Shot her like 3 times and she went tumbling down the embankment. Yeah.
Again, futuristic body armor. It's good stuff.
Totally true. Uh-oh. Done. The chicken walker. For you, Obi-Wan.
State of that.
There's the sparks again.
There they are again. Here's those guns, clearly. Oh, it's such a great sequence.
It is.
I love the state of his police car as well. It's a complete mess.
Yeah, I don't. And the legs. Whee!
Yeah.
Ignore that slapstick humor.
Well, the way it's shot for a second, you're not sure of what's happened, because you just see the leg and then it moves forward and you see it's missing the entire top part.
And the toe twitch.
Yes, the toe twitch is what makes it art. It's just glorious.
Perfect. And that corporate 80s boardroom.
Oh, yep.
80s boardroom looked just like that. I wasn't even in any boardrooms in the 80s, and I know it.
Yep. No, it's completely accurate.
Wanted for murder. Dun,
Yes.
dun, dun. It's a mechanical psychopath. I love that line.
It's such a great line. I love that Directive 4 flashing as well. Just that thing of like, yeah, how are you going to solve? Because it's a storytelling puzzle at this point, isn't it? How are you going to solve this?
And the OCP logo everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
I love his face right here. He's like, what do I do? I don't have any way out of this.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Hostages. When all else fails, hostages.
Absolutely. But I love the fact that it's the demonstration gun that was used earlier. In the Ed 209 bit.
Yep.
Again, it's just the efficiency of the storytelling. Nothing's wasted. It's It's so great.
It's a very flashy gun.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Boom. Got what's coming to you, Jones.
Gotcha.
Right through the window. Because that high up, it wouldn't be safety glass that would never break in a million years. But hey, dramatic effect. I'll take some artistic. And the thumbs up. I love the thumbs up.
The thumbs up is so good.
Like, hey, he just killed a guy. Okay. I mean, I know he had it coming, but still, there's some like, oh my god, I just saw a guy die.
Well, and that's Jones because Bob Morton was his boss, so he's he got to see his boss's killer get put away. I guess.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, there it is, man.
Note to end on.
It's so abrupt, isn't it? It's so just like that's it. The story's told. We're done. Yeah.
It's abrupt, but it's perfect.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I also like the fact that he smiles and says Robocop, and then he says Murphy. What's your name, son? Murphy, and that's immediately undercut by the Robocop title card.
Yeah, it's sort of that whole. It goes back to Murphy is Robocop, and then Robocop has sort of taken over Murphy.
Yeah.
I also really I guess I didn't really realize it, but I love how big everyone's names are. Like, if you look at a lot of modern credit sequences, a lot of them get shoved to the side
Yeah.
or minimized, or they're going by really fast. But here you get a nice, good look at a lot of people's names, music and, production, and they're front and center. They get their own
Yeah.
second. I like that.
No, I agree. It's respect for the artists who made this thing and put it together. And yeah, no, it's good to see.
Ray Wise, yay!
There he is, the great Ray Wise.
The devil himself.
And Paul McCrane, I think, was the guy who was the guy with the sideburns who went on to do ER.
Mountain guy.
Yeah.
Edward Edwards. That's an interesting name.
It's an
real name.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look up which one was Edward Edwards now. That's gonna haunt me otherwise. Well, and as the credits roll, this has been Watching Robocop with Kit Power and Amber Fallon. Amber, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and watch the film with me. I've had a great time.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
All right. And as the credits roll, if you could let the people listening know where they can find you and your work, because you are quite a busy human being, aren't you?
I'm very busy. Busier behind the scenes than you might believe. But you can find me, amberfallon.net. That's sort of the resource for all things Amber Fallon. I'm also very active on Twitter. I'm Zombie Girl. That's ZeroMBIEGRL. I do have a podcast. It's currently on hiatus as of the time of this recording. I'm building a new studio, and I should be all moved in there by the mid-May. So I should be back to talking about food and horror and all that fun stuff soon.
And I completely recommend doing all those things, checking out all that work. It's well worth doing. I do enjoy the cooking podcast in particular, and I don't even like cooking, and I still enjoy the podcast. So
Yeah,
it's good stuff. All right, well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show and watching the film. I've had a wonderful time, and I think we got a really good podcast out of it. So I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thank you.
All right, and stopping recording.
That was so much fun.
So that's it. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you have enjoyed the show, please do head on over to iTunes if you've got a second, if that's where you downloaded it from. Give it a star rating, give it a couple of lines review. That would help. Tell your friends that you enjoyed it. Tweet about it. Tweet out the episode. Let other people hear it. Let joy be unconstrained. Let it ring from the heavens that Watching Robocop with Kit Power is a thing that you did that you enjoyed doing. A reminder as ever, this show is brought to you entirely by the generosity of my Patreon backers who got to listen to this show a whole 7 days ahead of the rest of you because they are paying at least $1 a month for that privilege amongst many others. So if you want to get the smug satisfaction of listening to Watching Robocop a whole 7 days guarantee before anyone else gets a whiff of it, you know what to do. Head on over to patreon.com/Kit Power. Pledge as little as $1 a month and you will get early access to Watching Robocop with Kit Power. You will also get early access to every single monthly My Life in Horror column that I write for Digital Horror. You will also get, in addition to that, any week where you're not getting an episode of Robocop and you're not getting an essay on My Life in Horror, you'll be getting something else. You might be getting a book review, or you might be getting access to one of my short stories, or you might be getting show notes from a previous show or a future show. All kinds of goodies, but guaranteed some exclusive content every single week from me. Early access at the very least, often exclusive stuff that hasn't been released anywhere else either. So there you go. That's the plug as normal. If you've enjoyed the show, you want to help me keep doing it, make it viable, maybe get some more shows coming out on a more regular basis, patreon.com/Kit Power. But regardless, thank you so much for tuning in, listening to, and I hope enjoying this show. We will be back in a month or so, and until next time.
Go Robo!